The crimson warning lights bathed the bridge of the Terran research vessel, Aurora's Dream, in an ominous glow as alarms shrieked through the corridors. Dr. Elena Vasquez gripped her workstation as the ship shuddered under the impact of another plasma burst. Through the reinforced viewport, she could see the massive alien vessels surrounding them like predators circling wounded prey. "All hands, this is Captain Morrison. Prepare for boarding protocols. I repeat, prepare for boarding." The intercom crackled with static and barely controlled panic. Elena's hands trembled as she tried to secure her research data. 3 years of xenobiology studies, 3 years of documenting peaceful contact with 17 different species across the Outer Rim. All of it meaningless now as the Hegemony's war fleet descended upon their defenseless research ship. The Hegemony. Even thinking the name sent ice through her veins. For 2 centuries, these alien overlords had carved a bloody path across the galaxy, enslaving entire civilizations and strip-mining worlds until nothing remained but empty husks floating in space. Their empire stretched across 47 star systems, and no species had ever successfully resisted them. The ship lurched violently to one side, throwing Elena against the bulkhead. Emergency lighting flickered as power systems strained under the alien weapon bombardment. She could hear the hull groaning under stress, metal fatigue spreading like a disease through the ship's skeleton. "Dr. Vasquez, get to the escape pods now." Lieutenant Chen's voice cut through the chaos as he sprinted past her station. Blood streamed from a gash on his forehead where he'd been thrown against a console. But Elena couldn't move. Not yet. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she initiated the final data transmission to Earth. If she was going to die today, at least the human colonies would know what was coming. The Hegemony had found them. The transmission progress bar crawled forward with agonizing slowness, 70%, 80%. The ship shook again, and sparks erupted from nearby control panels. Smoke began filling the bridge as life support systems struggled to compensate. 95%, almost there. The blast doors at the far end of the bridge suddenly glowed cherry red, then white hot. Elena's blood turned to ice as she realized what was happening. The Hegemony wasn't just attacking. They were boarding. 100%. Transmission complete. Elena slammed her fist on the emergency lockdown sequence, wiping all computer systems clean. Whatever the aliens wanted from this ship, they wouldn't get Earth's location data or colony coordinates. Not from her. The blast doors exploded inward in a shower of molten metal and superheated gas. Through the smoke stepped creatures that belonged in humanity's darkest nightmares. 8 feet tall, covered in chitinous armor that gleamed like black oil, the Hegemony soldiers moved with predatory grace that spoke of millions of years of evolution as apex predators. Their faces were the worst part, vaguely humanoid but wrong in every detail, with too many teeth and eyes that held the cold intelligence of something that viewed all other life as inferior. One of them turned its attention to Elena, and she felt her knees go weak under that alien stare. Human female. Approach and submit for processing. It spoke in perfect English, its voice a harmonious blend of tones that somehow made the words even more terrifying. The Hegemony's translation technology was flawless, another tool they used to crush resistance before it could form. Elena pressed herself against the wall, her scientific mind cataloging details even as terror threatened to overwhelm her. The alien's weapon was unlike anything in human arsenals, a crystalline device that pulsed with inner light. Its armor showed battle damage from countless campaigns, each scar a testament to another conquered species. Processing parameters confirmed, the creature continued, raising what looked like a scanner in her direction. Genetic markers indicate standard baseline mammalian intelligence, suitable for labor classification 7 through 12. Labor classification. Elena's stomach churned as she realized what that meant. The Hegemony didn't just kill their enemies. They enslaved them, working conquered populations to death in their mines and factories before moving on to the next target. More hegemony soldiers poured through the breach, securing the bridge with military efficiency that spoke of countless similar operations. They moved like a machine, each knowing their role without need for communication. This was routine for them, just another day of conquest. Captain Morrison to all hands. Evacuation order rescinded. I repeat, do not attempt to reach the escape pods. They have been compromised. The captain's voice carried the weight of absolute defeat. Elena closed her eyes, knowing that her colleagues and friends were already dead or captured. The lead hegemony soldier approached her, its scanning device humming with energy. Resistance is contraindicated and will result in immediate termination. Compliance ensures survival probability of 67% through standard work rotation. 67%? Elena almost laughed at the clinical precision of it. These monsters had calculated the exact likelihood of her surviving their slave labor camps. They had reduced human existence to statistics and probability matrices. The human colony worlds will never surrender to you, she said, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. We may not have your technology, but we won't go quietly into slavery. The alien tilted its head, studying her with what might have been amusement. Query: does the human female refer to the 47 established population centers detailed in transmitted colonial expansion reports? Elena's blood turned to ice. The hegemony already knew about the colonies. Somehow they had intercepted Earth's communications and mapped out humanity's expansion into space. This attack wasn't random. It was the beginning of something much worse. Secondary query: does the human female possess data regarding military installations and defensive capabilities of core world-designated Earth? Go to hell, Elena spat, finding courage she didn't know she possessed. The creature made a sound that might have been laughter. Linguistic analysis indicates colloquial expression of defiance. Response noted and categorized. Transport to processing facility will commence in 37 time units. Elena's mind raced as she tried to process the implications. 37 time units. She didn't know their measurement system, but it couldn't be long, and processing facility meant she would be taken off the ship, away from any chance of rescue or escape. Around the bridge, the surviving crew members were being herded into groups by hegemony soldiers. Captain Morrison stood with his hands raised, his face a mask of barely controlled rage as he watched his people being cataloged like livestock. You picked the wrong species to enslave, Morrison said, his voice carrying clearly across the bridge. Humans don't break easily. The lead hegemony soldier turned its attention to the captain. Analysis indicates probability of successful pacification at 96.7% based on historical data from 234 previously subjugated species. Human resistance capabilities fall within standard parameters for carbon-based mammalian life forms. Elena felt a surge of pride mixed with despair. Even facing impossible odds, humanity's representatives were refusing to show fear to these alien overlords. But pride wouldn't stop the hegemony war machine from rolling over Earth's colonies like a tsunami of destruction. The boarding continued with mechanical efficiency. Hegemony soldiers swept through the ship, securing every compartment and capturing every survivor. Elena watched as her colleagues were processed through alien scanning devices, each person reduced to a series of measurements and classifications. Dr. Reeves from the physics department was classified as Technical Specialist, Tier 4. Engineer Walsh became Mechanical Systems Operator, Grade 2. Each person's entire existence reduced to their potential value as slave labor in the hegemony's industrial complex. Transport preparation complete. Loading sequence will commence in 15 time units, announced one of the soldiers. Elena looked around the bridge one last time, memorizing every detail. This had been her home for 3 years, a place of discovery and wonder as they explored the galaxy's peaceful species. Now it was a crime scene, evidence of humanity's first contact with an enemy they couldn't hope to defeat. The hegemony soldier gestured for her to move toward the breach in the blast doors. Elena took a deep breath and stepped forward, joining the line of captured humans being marched toward their transport ships. Each step felt like walking toward a grave, but she held her head high. As they were led through the ship's corridors, Elena saw the full extent of the hegemony's efficiency. Every useful piece of equipment was being stripped and cataloged. Computer systems were being analyzed and copied. The aliens were harvesting not just people, but knowledge and technology as well. The cargo bay had been converted into a temporary holding area. Rows of energy restraints held the surviving crew members in neat lines while hegemony technicians processed their personal belongings and medical data. Elena was pushed into position next to Lieutenant Chen, who gave her a grim nod of acknowledgement. "The distress beacon got through," Chen whispered, barely audible over the hum of alien machinery. "Earth Defense Command will know what happened here." Elena nodded, clinging to that small hope. At least the colonies would have warning. Maybe they could prepare defenses or evacuation plans. Maybe some of humanity could survive the coming storm. A new group of hegemony soldiers entered the cargo bay, these ones wearing different insignia. Elena's heart sank as she recognized the markings of high command. These weren't just boarding troops. These were the planners, the strategists, who would coordinate humanity's destruction. The largest of them approached Captain Morrison, who stood straight, despite his restraints. "Human Command Authority. You will provide navigation data for your species' core worlds." Morrison met the alien's gaze without flinching. "I'll give you nothing except my name, rank, and serial number. Compliance is not optional. Resistance will result in the implementation of enhanced interrogation protocols." The hegemony commander's voice carried a note of boredom, as if this conversation had happened countless times before with countless other species. "Then you'd better get started," Morrison replied, "because I'm not telling you anything that will help you hurt innocent people." Elena felt a surge of admiration for her captain. Even now, facing certain death or worse, he was protecting the colonies. It was exactly what she would expect from a man who had dedicated his life to exploring the galaxy in peace. The hegemony commander studied Morrison for a long moment, then turned to one of its subordinates. "Implement psychological pressure protocols. Begin with the youngest specimens." Elena's blood turned to ice as she realized what they meant. They were going to torture the crew members one by one until Morrison broke. It was a strategy as old as warfare itself, but no less effective for its simplicity. "Wait," Morrison said quickly. "There's something you need to know about humans. Something that's going to make this war very different from your previous conquests." The hegemony commander paused. "Elaborate." Morrison's face took on an expression Elena had never seen before. Cold, calculating, almost predatory. "We have something your other enemies probably didn't. We have soldiers who specialize in asymmetric warfare, who've spent their entire careers learning how to fight enemies with superior technology and numbers." Explanation is insufficient. All carbon-based species produce military castes. None have proven capable of sustained resistance against hegemony forces. "That's because none of them were Marines," Morrison said quietly. Elena felt a chill run down her spine at the way the captain said that word. Marines. She had heard stories, of course. Earth's elite warriors, forged in the crucible of humanity's bloodiest conflicts. Men and women who seemed to thrive in impossible situations where any reasonable person would surrender or die. The hegemony commander appeared unmoved. Military specialists are accounted for in conquest probability calculations. Human warrior caste capabilities fall within expected parameters. Morrison actually smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. You really have no idea what you've started, do you? You think this is just another conquest, another species to add to your empire? But you've made one critical error in your calculations. Specify error parameters. You attacked a civilian research vessel first. That means the first humans your empire encountered were scientists, doctors, and explorers. People who dedicate their lives to building and creating. Morrison's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried clearly through the cargo bay. But now you've declared war on our species, and that means you're about to meet the other side of humanity. The side that specializes in breaking things that can't be fixed. The conversation was interrupted by an urgent transmission that crackled through the hegemony communication systems. Elena couldn't understand the alien language, but the tone was unmistakable. Something had gone wrong. The hegemony commander's posture shifted slightly, and it began speaking rapidly with its subordinates. Elena caught fragments of translated words. Resistance. Casualties. Unexpected variables. Morrison's smile widened. Looks like you've met your first Marine. Staff Sergeant Marcus Reaper Rodriguez had been having a perfectly good morning until the galaxy decided to end. He was 3 days into shore leave on Titan Station, nursing his second cup of coffee and contemplating whether to spend his credits on a new rifle scope or just drink them away at Murphy's bar, when the emergency klaxons started screaming. The announcement that followed changed everything. Aliens had attacked a human research vessel. Real aliens. Hostile ones. The kind that made first contact with plasma cannons and boarding parties instead of handshakes and universal translators. Rodriguez set down his coffee cup with the careful precision of a man who had learned to control every movement, every emotion, every breath in service to the art of war. Around him, Titan Station erupted into controlled chaos as military personnel rushed to battle stations and civilian ships began emergency departures. All Marine personnel report to Deck 7 immediately. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. The announcement echoed through the corridors as Rodriguez made his way through crowds of panicking civilians. He found his squad already assembled in the briefing room, their faces grim masks of professional readiness. These were men and women who had followed him through the hell of the Martian Rebellion and the nightmare of the Europa campaign. They were the kind of people who ran toward gunfire while everyone else ran away. Colonel Peterson stood at the front of the room, her expression carved from granite. Behind her, a holographic display showed the last transmission from the research vessel Aurora's Dream. The images were stark and brutal, alien soldiers herding human prisoners, technology that made Earth's best weapons look like stone clubs, an enemy that moved with the confidence of inevitable victory. Ladies and gentlemen, we are officially at war, Peterson began without preamble. The enemy calls themselves the hegemony, and they've been conquering star systems for 2 centuries. No species has ever successfully resisted them. Every world they've touched has been stripped bare and its population enslaved. Rodriguez studied the tactical data streaming across his personal display. Ship configurations, weapon signatures, troop movement patterns. Everything suggested an enemy that was technologically superior in every measurable way. It should have been depressing. Instead, he felt the familiar cold fire of anticipation building in his chest. Intelligence analysis indicates they use standard siege doctrine, Peterson continued, overwhelming force applied to military targets, followed by systematic capture and processing of civilian populations. They're efficient, experienced, and they've never met an enemy they couldn't break. Corporal Jenkins raised her hand. Ma'am, what's our mission parameters? Reconnaissance in force, Peterson replied. We're taking the fast-attack corvette Nightshade to the last known position of Aurora's Dream. Primary objective is intelligence gathering. Secondary objective is rescue of any surviving personnel. Rodriguez felt his squad tense around him. A recon mission against an unknown alien threat was bad enough. A rescue mission meant they would be going in outnumbered, outgunned, and operating in enemy-controlled space. It was exactly the kind of impossible situation Marines specialized in making possible. Expected enemy strength? Rodriguez asked. Unknown. Could be anything from a single cruiser to an entire battle group. Peterson's voice carried the weight of sending people into a situation where death was the most likely outcome. What we do know is that these aliens have never faced humans in combat. They're used to quick surrenders and broken resistance. They have no frame of reference for what we're capable of. The briefing continued for another hour, covering everything from alien technology to emergency extraction procedures. Rodriguez absorbed it all with the mechanical efficiency of a professional warrior, but part of his mind was already racing ahead to the tactical challenges they would face. Fighting an enemy with superior technology meant abandoning conventional warfare doctrine. No frontal assaults, no pitched battles, no standing and trading shots like gentlemen. This would require every dirty trick, every underhanded tactic, every lesson learned in humanity's bloodiest conflicts. Squad leaders, you have 30 minutes to prep your people, Peterson announced. Wheels up in 60. Any questions? The room was silent. These were Marines. Questions were for people who expected to survive long enough to get answers. Rodriguez gathered his squad in the equipment bay, watching them check and recheck their gear with ritualistic precision. They were good soldiers, but they were about to face something no human had ever encountered before. Alien weapons, alien tactics, alien psychology. Every assumption about combat might be wrong. Listen up, people, he said, his voice cutting through the equipment noise. Everything we know about warfare just became obsolete. We're going up against an enemy that's been conquering star systems since before your grandparents were born. They have better weapons, better armor, better ships. Corporal Martinez looked up from his rifle. Sounds like a fair fight to me, Sarge. Rodriguez allowed himself a thin smile. That's because you're forgetting something important, Martinez. All that superior technology, all that experience, it's made them soft. They're used to enemies that break when pushed. They've never fought humans. He gestured to the tactical display showing hegemony troop movements. Look at their formations. Perfect discipline, textbook maneuvers, exactly what you'd expect from a professional military force. But it's too perfect, too predictable. They're fighting the last war, not this one. Private Thompson raised his hand. What makes us different, Sergeant? Rodriguez considered the question carefully. It was a good one, and it deserved an honest answer. Every species they've conquered probably thought they were the best warriors in the galaxy. But there's something about humans that's different. We don't just adapt to new situations. We excel in them. We take impossible odds and find ways to make them work for us instead of against us. He pulled up historical footage from Earth's wars. Soldiers fighting in conditions that should have killed them. Small units defeating forces 10 times their size through cunning, determination, and sheer bloody-minded refusal to quit. These aliens have spent 2 centuries steamrolling over enemies who fought fair, Rodriguez continued. They're about to learn that humans don't fight fair. We fight to win, and we'll use every advantage we can create, steal, or improvise. The transport flight to the Nightshade took 20 minutes, giving Rodriguez time to review the mission parameters one more time. The Corvette was built for speed and stealth rather than heavy combat, which suited their purposes perfectly. They weren't planning to fight a fleet action. They were planning to get in, cause havoc, and get out before the enemy knew what hit them. Captain Sarah Chen met them at the airlock, her expression professionally neutral. Sergeant Rodriguez, my ship is at your disposal, but I want to make one thing clear. If this goes sideways, I will not sacrifice my crew for a rescue mission. We extract your people or we don't, but either way we come home. Understood, Captain. We're not planning to die today. Good, because dying is easy. It's winning that takes skill. Chen turned to address the squad. We'll drop you at the edge of the system using stealth protocols. From there, You're on your own until extraction. The enemy won't see us coming, but they sure as hell will see us leaving if we have to punch our way out. The journey to the Aurora's dream position took 18 hours at maximum burn. Rodriguez used the time to run his squad through combat simulations, adapting their tactics for zero-gravity boarding actions and alien weapons signatures. They couldn't predict everything, but they could prepare for anything. The first sign that something was wrong came when they dropped out of hyperspace and found empty void where the research vessel should have been. No debris field, no distress beacons, no trace that a ship had ever been there. Sensor sweep shows hyperspace signatures consistent with multiple large vessels, Chen announced over the comm system. Looks like our alien friends took their prize and went home. Rodriguez felt the cold fury building in his chest. Somewhere out there, human beings were being processed by alien overlords who saw them as nothing more than livestock. It was a situation that demanded immediate and violent correction. Captain, can you track those signatures? Already am. Trail leads to a system about 6 light-years spinward. 3 planets, asteroid mining operations, looks like a typical industrial complex. Chen's voice carried a note of professional admiration. Whoever these aliens are, they know how to pick their targets. That system has enough raw materials to build a fleet. Then that's where we're going. The journey to the alien system took another day, giving Rodriguez more time to refine their plans. The tactical situation was beginning to crystallize in his mind. A rescue mission deep in enemy territory against an opponent with unknown capabilities. It should have been impossible. Instead, it felt like coming home. When they finally dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the target system, Rodriguez felt his breath catch in his throat. The scope of the hegemony's industrial complex was staggering. Dozens of mining platforms, processing stations, and construction facilities stretched across the asteroid belt like a mechanical cancer. And there, orbiting the third planet, was a massive station that could only be a prison facility. Sensors detected human life signs among thousands of other species, all of them held in conditions that made Rodriguez's trigger finger itch. "Jesus Christ," whispered Corporal Jenkins. "How many people are they holding down there?" "Too many," Rodriguez replied grimly. "But we're not here to save everyone. We're here to show these alien bastards that humans bite back." Captain Chen's voice crackled over the comm. "I'm reading defense platforms throughout the system. Whatever you're planning, Sergeant, it better be good. We're not fighting our way through a fleet action with a single corvette." Rodriguez was already running tactical calculations in his head. A direct assault was suicide, but Marines didn't do direct assaults anyway. They did the unexpected, the impossible, the things that made enemy commanders wake up screaming. "We don't fight the fleet, Captain. We ignore it." Rodriguez pulled up the station schematics on his display. "Look at the facility design. It's built for processing massive numbers of prisoners efficiently. That means automated systems, minimal guards, centralized control. You want to break into an alien prison fortress with 6 people? I want to turn their own systems against them. Show these overlords what happens when they mistake humans for easy prey." Rodriguez's voice carried the cold certainty of a man who had made a career out of making the impossible look routine. The plan that emerged was typically Marine in its simplicity and audacity. They would infiltrate the prison station, not to rescue everyone, but to turn the facility into a weapon against its builders. Every system the hegemony had designed to efficiently process prisoners would become a tool for breaking their empire from within. "This is insane," Chen said when Rodriguez finished explaining the plan. "That's what makes it perfect," Rodriguez replied. "These aliens have conquered 200 species using logical, predictable warfare. They've never faced an enemy crazy enough to turn a prison break into an act of strategic warfare." As the Nightshade moved deeper into the system under stealth protocols, Rodriguez felt the familiar calm that came before combat. Somewhere ahead, Human beings were suffering in alien cages, probably convinced that rescue was impossible. They were about to learn that impossible was just another word for Tuesday in the Marine Corps. The Hegemony Prison Station, designated Processing Facility Omega-7, had operated without incident for 43 standard cycles. Its automated systems could handle up to 50,000 prisoners simultaneously, sorting them by species, skill level, and labor classification with mechanical efficiency that had made it a model for similar facilities across the Empire. Commander Vex Thull reviewed the daily reports with the same bored satisfaction he had felt for the past decade. Another shipment of primitive carbon-based life forms had been processed and assigned to appropriate work details. Resource extraction quotas were being met with standard efficiency parameters. Nothing required his personal attention. The new species designated human showed typical characteristics of recently conquered populations. Initial resistance followed by gradual acceptance of their new reality. Their biological parameters fell well within standard ranges for mammalian tool users. Unremarkable in every measurable way. That assessment was about to change in ways that would send shock waves through the Hegemony High Command. Rodriguez pressed himself against the station's hull, his magnetic boots keeping him anchored as the facility slowly rotated beneath him. Through his helmet's display, he could see his squad spreading out across the station's surface, each Marine moving with the careful precision of apex predators stalking their prey. The infiltration had gone perfectly so far. Captain Chen had managed to slip them past the patrol ships using electronic warfare techniques that would have impressed Earth's best hackers. Now they were on the station itself, looking for a way inside that wouldn't trigger every alarm in the system. "Sarge, I've got an access port here," whispered Corporal Martinez over the comm. "Looks like a maintenance shaft for atmospheric processing?" Rodriguez made his way to Martinez's position, studying the alien technology with professional interest. The Hegemony's engineering was impressive, but it showed the same overconfidence that marked all their operations. Sophisticated locks, but no redundant security measures. They were so used to unopposed conquest that they had forgotten to plan for determined enemies. "Jenkins, get over here with your electronic toys," Rodriguez ordered. Corporal Jenkins drifted over, her movements graceful in the zero-gravity environment. She was the squad's technical specialist, a former computer engineer who had joined the Marines after the corporate wars on Europa. Her particular talent was making other people's technology do things it wasn't designed to do. "Give me 5 minutes, Sarge," she said, connecting her portable interface to the alien access port. Their security protocols are actually pretty straightforward once you figure out the logic patterns. While Jenkins worked, Rodriguez reviewed their tactical situation. They were 6 humans infiltrating a facility designed to hold 50,000 prisoners. By any reasonable measure, it was suicide. But Rodriguez had made a career out of proving that reasonable measures didn't apply to Marines. "I'm in," Jenkins announced. "The maintenance shaft leads to a central processing hub. From there, we should be able to access the main computer systems." The journey through the station's maintenance areas was like crawling through the arteries of some vast alien organism. Pipes and conduits carried fluids and energy in patterns that spoke of technologies Earth was still centuries away from developing. But for all their sophistication, the aliens had made one critical error. They had built their prison to be efficient, not secure against internal threats. Rodriguez's squad emerged into a computer core that hummed with the power of systems managing thousands of automated processes. Prisoner monitoring, resource allocation, guard rotations, environmental controls. Everything needed to run a galactic prison complex, all controlled from this central location. "My God," whispered Private Thompson, staring at the displays showing prisoner populations across multiple facilities. "There are millions of them, sentient beings from dozens of species, all being worked to death in mining operations." Rodriguez felt the cold fury building in his chest, but he forced it down. Emotion was a luxury Marines couldn't afford in combat. There would be time for anger later, after the mission was complete. Jenkins, can you access their communication networks? Already working on it, Sarge. Their computer architecture is actually more vulnerable than their security systems. They use centralized control for everything, which means if we crack the core, we crack the entire network. Rodriguez nodded grimly. Centralized control was efficient, but it created single points of failure that could be exploited by anyone clever enough to recognize the weakness. The hegemony's overconfidence was about to become their greatest vulnerability. "What's the plan, Sergeant?" asked Corporal Martinez, his rifle trained on the access corridor. Rodriguez was already running calculations in his head, weighing options and consequences with the mechanical precision of a man who had spent his life turning impossible situations into tactical advantages. "We're going to give these alien overlords a lesson in human warfare," he said quietly. "They think they understand us because they've processed a few hundred prisoners. They have no idea what they've actually started." The plan that emerged was elegantly simple in its brutality. Instead of trying to break everyone out of the prison, they would turn the facility's own systems into weapons of rebellion. Every automated process designed to control prisoners would become a tool for coordinating resistance. Jenkins worked her magic on the alien computers, while the rest of the squad established security perimeters. The hegemony's technology was impressive, but it was also predictable. They had built their systems to handle known threats, not creative humans who specialized in thinking outside conventional parameters. "I've got access to prisoner communication systems," Jenkins announced. "Internal security networks, guard deployment schedules, even the automated feeding systems. Everything is connected to everything else." "Perfect. Start with the humans from Aurora's dream. We need to establish contact and coordinate our next moves." The first challenge was locating the research ship's survivors among thousands of prisoners. The hegemony's classification systems were thorough, but they were designed around their own understanding of species capabilities. They had cataloged humans as standard mammalian tool users with moderate intelligence potential. It was an assessment that was about to prove catastrophically wrong. Rodriguez found Dr. Elena Vasquez in Detention Block 7. Along with most of the Aurora's Dream crew. According to the prison records, they had been classified for technical support roles in the mining operations. The hegemony saw them as useful slaves, not potential threats. "Dr. Vasquez, this is Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, Earth Defense Marines." "Can you hear me?" The response came through the hijacked communication system with barely controlled emotion. "Sergeant, how is that possible? We're in the middle of alien space, surrounded by their entire fleet." "That's what makes it the perfect place for Marines, Doc. Listen carefully. We're going to get you out of there, but first we need information. How many human prisoners are in your block? What's the guard situation? Any other species that might be willing to help?" Rodriguez listened as Dr. Vasquez provided a detailed breakdown of prison conditions. The picture that emerged was both better and worse than he had expected. The hegemony used minimal organic guards, relying instead on automated systems and the assumption that broken prisoners wouldn't resist. But they had also separated prisoners by species to prevent communication and coordination. "There's something else, Sergeant," Dr. Vasquez added. "The aliens have been interrogating Captain Morrison about Earth's defenses. They want navigation data for our colony worlds." Rodriguez felt ice form in his veins. If the hegemony learned the locations of humanity's colonies, this wouldn't be a rescue mission anymore. It would be a race to prevent genocide on a stellar scale. "Has the captain given them anything?" "Not yet. But they're getting creative with their persuasion techniques. I don't think anyone can hold out indefinitely against what they're doing to him." The tactical situation crystallized in Rodriguez's mind with brutal clarity. They weren't just fighting to rescue prisoners anymore. They were fighting to prevent the complete destruction of human civilization. It was exactly the kind of impossible odds that separated Marines from everyone else. "Change of plans, people," Rodriguez announced to his squad. "We're not just breaking out prisoners. We're starting a full-scale rebellion." Over the next 6 hours, Rodriguez's team worked to turn the hegemony's own efficiency against them. Jenkins hacked communication systems to coordinate resistance among multiple species. Martinez and Thompson sabotaged automated security systems, creating blind spots in surveillance networks. Rodriguez himself infiltrated the command center to gather intelligence on hegemony military capabilities. What he found there changed everything. The hegemony wasn't just another conquering empire. They were running out of resources. 2 centuries of strip mining conquered worlds had depleted their core systems, forcing them to expand aggressively into new territories. Earth and its colonies represented the raw materials needed to sustain their civilization for another 1,000 years. But there was something else in the command files that made Rodriguez smile with predatory satisfaction. The hegemony high command was completely unprepared for sustained resistance. Their entire military doctrine was based on overwhelming initial force, followed by systematic exploitation of broken populations. They had no contingency plans for enemies that fought back effectively. "Jenkins, are you still in their communication networks?" "Yes, sir. I've got access to everything from guard rotations to supply manifests." "Good. I want you to send a message to every hegemony facility in this system. Tell them that humans have declared war on their empire, and that any facility holding human prisoners is now a legitimate military target." Jenkins paused, her hands hovering over the alien interface. "Sarge, that's going to bring every guard in the system down on our heads." "That's the idea, Corporal. They think they're dealing with broken prisoners. Time to show them they're fighting Marines." The message went out across hegemony networks with the same mechanical efficiency they used for all their communications. Prison facilities, mining operations, even orbital defense platforms received the same simple declaration. Humanity had come to collect its people, and anything that stood in the way would be destroyed. The response was immediate and exactly what Rodriguez had hoped for. Alarm klaxons screamed through the station as automated systems shifted to maximum security protocols. Guard forces that had been spread across multiple facilities suddenly converged on areas holding human prisoners. "Sir, they're moving everything they've got toward prisoner-holding areas," reported Martinez from his surveillance position. "Perfect. That means they're leaving everything else undefended." Rodriguez pulled up the station schematics on his display, marking targets with the precision of a surgeon planning an operation. "Thompson, I want you to take these demolition charges to the main power distribution center. Martinez, you're hitting the communications array. Jenkins stays here to coordinate prisoner uprisings." "I'm going after their commander." It was a plan that would have been impossible for any conventional military unit. 6 people, taking on an entire fortress designed to hold 50,000 prisoners. But Rodriguez wasn't conventional military. He was a Marine, and Marines specialized in making the impossible look easy. The final assault began with the precision of a symphony and the violence of a natural disaster. Rodriguez moved through the station's corridors like a force of nature, his rifle cutting down any hegemony guard unfortunate enough to cross his path. Behind him, explosions echoed through the facility as his squad systematically destroyed everything that kept the prison operational. But the real victory wasn't military, it was psychological. Commander Vex Thol watched his perfect prison dissolve into chaos as species after species joined the human-led rebellion. Systems that had operated flawlessly for decades suddenly turned against their operators. Prisoners who had been broken and compliant became organized resistance fighters almost overnight. And at the center of it all, 6 humans moved with lethal efficiency that redefined the hegemony's understanding of warfare. They didn't fight like the conquered species the Empire was used to facing. They fought like apex predators that had found perfect hunting grounds. "All facilities report coordinated uprisings," his aide reported with barely controlled panic. The humans have somehow organized resistance across 17 different species in multiple locations. Vexthul studied the tactical displays with growing horror. In less than 8 hours, these primitive mammals had turned his model prison into a coordinated rebellion that was spreading to other facilities throughout the system. It was militarily impossible, but it was happening anyway. How many humans were involved in this assault? Sensor records indicate 6 individual organic signatures, Commander. 6. 6 humans had destroyed a facility designed to hold 50,000 prisoners. 6 humans had turned the hegemony's most secure prison into the center of a system-wide rebellion. 6 humans had proven that everything the Empire thought it knew about warfare was wrong. Rodriguez found Commander Vexthul in the station's command center, still trying to understand how his perfect prison had become a nightmare. The alien commander turned as Rodriguez entered, his weapon trained on the creature that had supervised the torture of human beings. "You!" Vexthul said, his translation system rendering the words with mechanical precision. "Explain how this tactical impossibility has been achieved." Rodriguez kept his rifle steady, but allowed himself a cold smile. "Simple. You made the mistake of thinking humans would break like all your other enemies. But we're not like other species. We don't break. We bend, and then we snap back with interest. Analysis indicates this assault required coordination impossible for primitive mammalian neural networks." "That's your second mistake," Rodriguez replied. "We're not primitive. We're just getting started." Through the command center's viewports, Rodriguez could see the fruits of their labor. Across the prison station, newly freed prisoners were taking control of critical systems. Other facilities in the system were reporting similar uprisings as the rebellion spread through hegemony communication networks. But most importantly, the research vessel crew was free and safe. Dr. Vasquez and her colleagues were already working with Jenkins to copy hegemony computer files that would give Earth invaluable intelligence about their new enemy. "Your empire has spent 2 centuries conquering helpless civilizations," Rodriguez continued. "You got used to easy victories against broken enemies. But now you've picked a fight with humans, and humans don't fight fair. We fight to win." The extraction came 12 hours later, as Captain Chen brought the Nightshade in for a combat pickup that would have impressed naval historians for its sheer audacity. The corvette punched through hegemony defenses like a bullet through paper, proving that human technology might be primitive, but human tactics were revolutionary. As they jumped to hyperspace with 47 rescued prisoners and enough stolen intelligence to plan Earth's defense, Rodriguez allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. They had achieved the impossible, turned a rescue mission into a declaration of war that would echo across the galaxy. The hegemony had spent 2 centuries believing they were unstoppable. They had just learned that they had never fought humans before. And humans, Rodriguez reflected as he watched the alien system disappear behind them, had a talent for turning hopeless situations into total victory. The war for humanity's survival was just beginning. But the galaxy's overlords had already learned their first hard lesson about fighting Marines. It was a lesson they would never forget, assuming any of them survived long enough to remember it. Somewhere in the depths of space, Earth was preparing for the fight of its existence. But thanks to 6 Marines and 1 impossible mission, humanity now knew exactly what they were up against. More importantly, they had proved that even Galactic Overlords could be made to fear. The hegemony had picked the wrong species to enslave. They were about to learn that humans didn't just fight back. They fought to win, and they never, ever gave up.